Welcome to another episode of ProcessMiner University. In this podcast, learn what's happening in the world of the industrial Internet of Things from leading authority Lucian Fogoros, co-founder of IIoT World. Karim Pourak, co-founder and CEO of ProcessMiner, will interview Lucian as he shares some common misconceptions about IIoT and his observations about investments manufacturers are making in digital technologies.
Good afternoon, Lucian. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be a guest at our ProcessMiner University podcast. It's an honor to have you on our program, and I'm looking forward to learn from you, and I'm hoping and confident that our audience will learn from you too. All right, so
thank you for allowing me to be on the show. Thank you, Karim.
Of course, it's a pleasure. All right, I'll just jump in and start with your company. Actually, one of the industry-leading publications with a very large audience out there and providing a lot of information regarding the IoT and AI technologies related to manufacturing. And as a fellow entrepreneur and co-founder, tell me a little bit about the history of how long you've been in business, what compelled you to start this publication?
Sure. So IoT World is on its fourth year. So February 3rd will actually have our anniversary. I come from industrial software background, so I wrote device drivers, software engineer for industrial processes, moved in various roles in product management, product marketing, project management as well at global level. About 4 years ago, after I've tested the market a little bit, it was very obvious there's a need for educated at C-level as to what exactly is this industrial IoT, how do you get started with it, whether it's Industry 4.0 in Germany, whether it's China 2025, industrial IoT here in North America. How do you get started with it? And a little secret, my business partner is actually my wife. Her background is journalism. She wrote her PhD comparing digital versus traditional journalism. So we thought we would put this thing to address a couple of things. One was filling a gap what trade publications were not covering about 4 or 5 years ago, or they were covering as a supplement industrial IoT, primarily because they're probably afraid of cannibalization of the existing business. And perhaps the fourth industrial revolution or evolution into the fourth industrial, it's not as easy to put your hands on like the first, second, or third, right? And so that was the first thing to do, is filling the gap in the market that was out there. The other thing is to democratize the industrial marketing. So traditionally in the manufacturing perspective, there's probably about 8 companies that had been controlling the space, right? And what we wanted to do is offer the same seat at the table for a startup that has a very promising solution, as well as the large companies to essentially talk about what is predictive analytics and perhaps address a problem within that. So as you know, digitalization is everywhere. So there was one of the trends that was at that time. If I look at what, 40 years ago or 20 years ago when I started my career in the industrial space with a VC-backed industrial software, you used to go for a market that's basically one distributor at a time. So you had a product, you're adding a distributor at a time. That's a linear thinking. So now we're in this explosive, exponential era where thinking exponentially, it's becoming a little bit harder to predict where you're going to be 2 to the power of 16 to the power of 32 without a calculator. So this change was a prime for IoT World. And what we've done is we had a broad subject matter expert, such as yourself, such as Tom, to our platform. So over 450 folks, subject matter experts from around the world, to comment as to what exactly is it, to write about it, and to get interviewed, kind of like this. And then the second thing, that resulted in a community that's approaching 250,000 decision makers, about 246,000 people less than we out of it.
All right, great. So this puts you actually in a very unique position of recognizing these digital transformation trends that is taking place right now. So from your point of view, what industries are making the biggest investments and really moving toward utilizing Industry 4.0 technologies, and as a whole of their fundamentals of their digital strategy? which industries are you seeing the biggest investments taking place?
Right. So in my mind, I think every industry will be disrupted by this digitalization, by this industrial IoT. You've mentioned Industry 4.0, so that's Germany's initiative to enhance the German competitiveness in manufacturing industry. So certainly we are seeing that in manufacturing, but we picked 3 industries. So we dabbled when we started in roughly about 16 different industries, and we decided it's going to be manufacturing, it's going to be energy, it's infrastructure, and digital buildings, to name a few. I think those are the things that, every industry is in a different, if you will, maturity phase, right? If you take manufacturing, automotive manufacturing, they've been connecting things, they've been automating for many, many years. So there's probably a little more advanced on their journey. If you take, for instance, in the energy space, we're just scratching the surface about the opportunities there. So definitely see a lot of investment there.
All right. And you talked about the journey. So we lately, especially since past couple of years, we are seeing the high trend of increasing the companies going toward the Industry 4.0 initiatives. However, a lot of these companies, they have different ideas of what that's going to look like. And some of these activities and decision makings are happening in the IT departments of companies, some happening in a C-suite of companies. So they're still struggling to sort of put a right vision and right plan together. Are you seeing this problem out there with these companies? And if you do, what's your suggestion for these companies? What's your advice for these companies? How to start? How to start with the right plan?
Yeah, so don't know if there's a right or wrong plan. I think everybody is in a different maturity, I guess, level. And as such, there's no one solution. We started the executive level only because if you start at the top, we felt that any project you have a chance to be ported out towards multiple sites and so on. So we thought that having an executive sponsor would be something that would be recommended. So absolutely, we're seeing the same thing. I probably talked to over 2,500 different companies over the last 4 years. So yes, we are seeing quite a bit of this. We are seeing isolated projects that work, probably has good potential, but they didn't get the right sponsorship or executive sponsorship to do that. So that's why we started at that executive to educate.
A lot of companies and organizations actually start a journey, right?
Yeah.
But they're struggling to realize the value and monetize their data when they get into this industry, industrial IoT or artificial intelligence for manufacturing. And a lot of companies actually start in-house doing these projects, right? And we see a big evidence out there that a lot of internal projects of these companies actually never passes the POC level, right? It gets to that stage and never becomes a product. Why do you see that and how do you see this sort of changing? These companies are now looking for the technologies outside of their organization, or are you seeing still the trend of these companies trying to do it yourself method?
We see a mix of those things in terms of, again, it's our customers or our customers' customers that come and tell their story. So this is when we have an end user, we bring in and try to pick their brains, like we recently have from Toyota and so on. Why are some of the projects don't go behind the POC? It could be a number of reasons. You can prove value in a small POC, but is it directly aligning with the executive direction and vision? So I think if you don't have the right, if you will, map, you're always going in the right direction, right? So it's having the right KPI. I think that's very important. And what problem you're solving. You're not going to go out and buy an industrial IoT. What you're trying to is try to solve something and prove there is value. So having the right KPI, align that, and then kind of measuring that. So if there is a way to do that, I think companies that had success, those in my, at least if I see a common trend, that's where it's at, is having the right KPI and whatever we call it, the industrial IoT, whatever the term you use, that's typically what we've seen at least the majority that have been able to roll out in multiple locations.
Gotcha. So, what is the most common, Lucian? What's the most common sort of misconception and misunderstanding of the C-suite executives in the companies that are getting into planning and execution of the Industry 4.0? What is it that you see that every time you see it, say, here, this is, they're thinking, they're not looking at this on the right way?
So I think there's a couple of things. On one hand, there are a number of executives that had been ignoring the space, right, for a while. They're skeptical. Well, we've been collecting data. What's new now, right? So if you take the traditional industrial automation, just for an example, that's been a little bit of skepticism there because we've been collecting data. But what's changed is three things, right? Is the cost of hardware is approaching zero. When I started my career, an industrial computer was $20,000. Now it's, you can get a little tablet and put an enclosure box and it's got more sensor in it. The cost of extraction of the data, it's approaching zero. So that's another thing. Business models that are changing, right? You're going from a large CapEx expenditure to an OpEx. So I think and the second problem that we see with some of the executives looking at this is that, they see a number of people extracting value. Let's jump in a game without having a strategy, without putting the right KPI in place. So I think those are at least a couple of that I could comment on. If just judging based on the last 4 years of experience, if I go back, yet another mistake that was made, and perhaps that's more on a vendor side, is thinking that industrial IoT is simply taking an old use case that's connected and labeling industrial IoT and bragging to everybody got industrial IoT. And I think that was also a mistake to jump in there, because customers remember, do remember that you've tried to sell predictive analytics 20 years ago, and perhaps it didn't go quite as advertised. So at least 2 or 3 examples there.
Very good, very good. Actually, this is a great example. So that leads me to the question I have, and the comment I always make when we're in these conventions or in panels about the role that is now. It's an empty chair, I'll call it, at this point, still in a lot of boardrooms, and that is a chief digital officer of companies, right? I think we see that increasingly becoming a necessity for these companies, because there should be a sort of a maestro, an organizer, and someone who can sort of put this plan together with the consideration of all different aspects of the business, and not just one side of it. It cannot just be IT centric. It cannot just be business centric, right? It should have a different vision. So are you seeing a trend of that role being opened with corporations right now?
Yes, on a large side, yes, we are seeing a lot of these new roles emerging, and yes, you do need to have someone that's getting up every morning and focusing on that and keep an eye on the KPIs. And also in some of the large end users, we're seeing those, and I think that's why you also see a lot of a number of the use cases go beyond a POC, because of having someone that's assigned to keep an eye on that, and it's somebody that has the backing of the board, like you've referenced.
All right, great. So, in terms of ROI, right? A lot of companies, when they put their plan together, they have some expectation of what the ROI should be, right? And this is still a developing technology. Industrial IoT, AI, predictive analytics, machine learning. Believe it or not, this is maybe been done for many years, but we are in I could say we are in a early stage still of this, to really truly get it to the point that can flourish and bring a lot of value to these manufacturers. So the ROI expectation of companies sometimes unrealistic. When you put a system in place, for example, on a scrap rate reduction, they all of a sudden want to achieve what's achievable in 10 years in 1 month or 2 months or in a pilot phase. Are you seeing this being a problem in different industries, or are you seeing this is actually becoming a education problem of us companies like ProcessMiner educating their customers about how to approach and how to expect achieving these ROIs?
I certainly think that a company like yours has a tough job to kind of educating that, because you first have to do a lot of undoing of what was promised in the past and wasn't quite accomplished. And I referenced that sort of a target folks that had been, and ROI is one of the things, the hardest thing to focus on, right? So there's people went for low hanging fruits in predictive maintenance and it's easy math, right, and stuff. But there is a lot of opportunity. I think we're just scratching the surface. You mentioned AI in there. You know, if I look at you know, quality in a manufacturer, right, used to be a vision system to do the quality, and it was quite expensive, hard to set up, right? Now you may just have technology that you can set up a off-the-shelf camera and an algorithm that may actually be able to do some basic inspection, not to compete with the vision, but where the inspection wasn't possible. So there might be another area to do some to extract some more value. So I think that if companies do this planning right, do a little bit of POC and the pilot project and have set a realistic expectation, it's and you have the right backing, you can carry that. But yes, it's still a long journey, right? We're still at the beginning, but I fully believe that you know, it's not just the technology industry IoT, but that coupled with artificial intelligence, like you referenced, it's due to disrupt just about any industry.
Gotcha. And then that brings me to my next subject, which is the adoption, right? Manufacturing traditionally have been run by a lot of good folks that had a lot of experience, right, in a floor of these manufacturing environments, and had brought a tremendous value to manufacturing, got everything up and kept everything up and running. Now we are introducing a disruptive type of concept to these folks. And adoption is an issue. And part of this is obviously lies on us, companies like ours, to educate and our customers. The way we approach that ProcessMiner, we always refer to artificial intelligence as an intelligence assistant for our customers, right? And not a replacement for the folks that have been keeping these industries going, and they will be keeping these industries going. So what is your advice for companies that are facing the challenges on the floor of these manufacturing with the adoption of the folks that have to be working with these advanced technologies?
Right. So I don't know that I have advice. I'm not in the consulting business, but from when I was out doing it, if I were to have a product to push it out, it's certainly showing how or trying to educate it on the areas that would complement it, right? So you have the millennials that are digital natives that fully embrace this. And then you have these folks with a wealth of experience that may be a little bit skeptical. But if you can have projects that allow to show the needle moving, those are ways to I think, and if I were to push a product like that, that's what I would focus, is to show the needle moving and show how it complements what they do, and perhaps inject that they can do other tasks they are more, they may be more excited about doing. Those are at least a couple of ways that I would.
Gotcha. Exactly. I think you're absolutely right. For instance, what you're experiencing is introducing our autonomous control that operators, they love it because it allows them to do more precision optimization on their system, obviously showing very tangible ROI on what they do in terms of saving chemicals, raw materials, and other benefits that it provides, and reduce variability on their system. They have a more sort of a smooth operations running on their processes. And absolutely, you're absolutely right that there are different value propositions that it's collectively going to bring a lot of value to them, but it needs maturity, and we have to show value also to these folks to make sure that we can gain their confidence, right, and trust. Right. So that we can work together to improve those values.
And also, is it going to be a burden to themselves? How easy is to use that, right? So if you give something that it allows them to focus on the process versus the how difficult the particular adapting the controller is. It then they will adopt it because it makes their job easier, and they look like heroes in a manufacturing facility.
Exactly. All right. So manufacturing in particular is a very labor-intensive industry, and COVID-19 have had a profound impact on manufacturing as it has on all the different businesses. What changes and adaptations in technology are you seeing deployed to respond to the crisis in the past year?
So I think we've seen a number of changes, right? Certainly safety, it was a primary concern, and that there was a must change, right? So tools that enables the social distances, we've seen a lot of those. Certainly we couldn't travel, so you have to now open the ports to allow remote troubleshooting and helping keep that machine running. So there's at least a couple of that. Now, the other thing that I've just came across a study from McKinsey, right? A digital adoption has taken like what they refer to a quantum leap, both organizational and industry levels. So, and what they refer to is the digital interaction has moved about 3 or 4 years, depending on what region, 3 to 4 years faster around that. And the data is out there from McKinsey for that. So that's on, if you will, just what everybody could see. But on the other hand, if you look at the investments that were done, there are some organizations that refer to the COVID year being a catalyst from investments in that area, is because it became clear that you have to do it and sped up that process.
Right, and obviously, you know that one of the positive sides of the crisis is always the innovations that coming out of those crises, right? Humans tend to do a lot more in terms of innovation to survive, and you're seeing this right and in the health industry, pharmaceutical industry, and manufacturing, and a lot of other industries right now. All right, and gets to my last question actually. FDA approved 2 vaccines right last week, which is a great news for everybody, and we have had a lot of corporate restrictions on travel, and we used to go to conventions, right, and different events in person, and that was a norm for us. Now that has changed. That has become a lot of events becoming into the virtual format, right? You're Zooming a lot more than before. So how do you see this trend changes after the crisis is controlled and hopefully over soon?
Yeah, so I feel the same way. I have a burning desire, and I'm itching to travel again, so I can't wait for this to be over. I felt that the events were way due to change, right? So will they change or pivot all online? Probably not. People still want to have that interaction face-to-face, having that conversation over the network and over a glass of wine, relaxed atmosphere to meet. But I do think that the organizers do have to give, to maintain some of this. Perhaps we get back to these large events, but it would be a hybrid. You also have the opportunity to provide that remote, so you don't have to all travel to Hanover, Germany, where 250,000 people in manufacturing meet together. You can still do that, but perhaps it's not for 5 days, perhaps it's shorter. But perhaps it's you're also getting some of that and digitize it and keeping that for longer than just a week there. It's probably live for another year or more so in a digital asset. And also, I think people will have to, we talked a little bit about ROI, right? Why we're doing what we're doing. So people are asking that, what is the ROI for spending, and there are some people say spending several millions to be at a trade show like that. It may be a hybrid now. You spend a little bit to have a presence there and a little bit to be online as well. The method of marketing, right? That's why you go in there to present your show, to meet with the customers. The methods marketing there used to be the old saying, half the money spent on advertising is wasted. The trouble is figure out which half. Well, now the method marketing with this artificial intelligence, with various ways, you can actually predict, right? You spend this much, and it's, you know, whatever your order costs this much, you can predict what you're gonna be. So I'm certainly looking forward to 2021 to start adding something on my agenda. But I do expect that the events will be hybrid. just to put things in perspective and not to give another plug to our company, we were averaging about a year ago, roughly about anywhere from 300 to 1,200 people on a virtual event. We're 100% digital. We put in a 6 months notice that we're going to do a virtual event. And it went from a goal of 12,000 people from 70 countries, leveraging 70 speakers. We ended up with 95 speakers. We did a 2 days event instead of one, 14,500 virtual attendees. Now that's COVID time, right? But I do think that people will be opting for a hybrid way of doing it. There's something just not possible to be there. So.
I agree with you, but I believe that this transitions actually to after COVID. You know, the interest stays there as long as we feed it, right? So, Lucian, thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you. Congratulations again on your new baby, and have a wonderful holiday. Okay, and definitely looking forward to a healthy 2021 for everybody, and you and your family as well, and meeting you in person, you know, soon.
Thank you, Karim, and thank you, your organization, for inviting me. Happy holidays, and if you're watching out there, look forward to see you at a future event or online somewhere.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karim and Lucian, for that intriguing and thought-provoking dialogue. I've no doubt our listeners will benefit from your insights on trends in IoT technology. Be sure to tune in to the next podcast, where a panel of leading data scientists will discuss the benefits of deep learning and other emerging artificial intelligence approaches that are benefiting continuous manufacturing. In the meantime, stay safe and innovate boldly.